All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to do a deep dive today.
Sounds good.
And we're looking at this really interesting excerpt about intimacy issues.
hmm
Um, and I think it's something that probably a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I think, we kind of view in a very narrow way sometimes.
Yeah.
But it really affects all areas of our lives, romantic relationships, friendships, family.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I thought was really interesting about this excerpt is they actually broke down like 8 different types of
Wow.
intimacy issues. So emotional,
Mm.
physical, communication issues, past trauma. They even talk about attachment styles.
Yeah.
Really fascinating stuff.
It really makes you realize just how many different ways this can show up.
Absolutely.
And I think, when you really break down what intimacy is, like the core components of it, it's
Yeah.
like vulnerability and trust and really making that connection with another person.
Right.
And, when you consider how much baggage we all carry from past relationships
Yeah.
and societal expectations, it's really no wonder that people struggle with it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And, for me, like even thinking about my own experiences,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like even when I want to be close to someone,
hmm
there's almost like this like invisible wall that goes up.
Oh, yeah.
And, the excerpt talked about past trauma, and I was wondering,
Yeah.
could that be related, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Trauma can actually rewire your brain, changing the way we process things like
Um,
safety
oh, I
and connection. So think about it. If you've been hurt in the past, your brain's kind of like on high alert all the time,
Right.
trying to protect you from feeling that pain again.
Yeah.
So even if you want to be intimate on a conscious level, your nervous system's sending these signals like, hey, wait a minute,
Oh, wow.
this might not be safe.
So it's almost like a physical reaction,
Exactly.
like an instinct.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can really show up in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
like difficulty opening up emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
feeling uncomfortable with physical touch, or even sabotaging relationships before they get too close.
That's so interesting. And so it's it's a lot more than just I guess uh, just past trauma, right? Because we were
Right.
talking about
Right.
attachment styles earlier, so that's more about
Yeah, and those early bonds we have with our caregivers, those really are the foundation for how we approach relationships later in life.
right.
So, take someone with what we call an avoidant attachment style.
Hmm.
They might have learned to suppress their needs as a child, maybe to avoid conflict with their parents.
Yeah.
And that ends up carrying over into their adult relationships.
Thanks.
So they have a hard time expressing their needs or asking for support.
That is so interesting. I think that actually
Yeah.
happens to me sometimes. Like I find myself downplaying
Mm-hmm.
my needs just to avoid like, you know, any kind of conflict, worrying about how my partner might react.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that is like avoidant attachment style.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is such a common pattern.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from, this fear of rejection or the belief that our needs aren't valid or important.
Right.
But they are.
They are. So this has been a really fascinating conversation about emotional intimacy. But what about the physical side of things?
Right.
Because that can be a whole other challenge, I think.
Definitely. Physical intimacy is so personal and it's influenced by so many different things. Past experiences, body image, even just having different needs and desires than your partner.
Absolutely. And I imagine that communication is probably huge here too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like being able to actually talk about
Huge.
what feels good, what doesn't, and what you need
Mhm.
from your partner.
It's really the key in any relationship.
Yeah.
But, especially when it comes to intimacy, learning to advocate for yourself, setting boundaries,
Mm.
and having those sometimes uncomfortable conversations,
Yeah.
that can make a world of difference.
Okay, so for someone listening right now
Mm.
who's maybe resonating with all of this,
Yeah.
maybe they're recognizing some of these patterns in themselves,
Mhm.
what would you say to them? Where do they even begin to address these issues?
Well, I think the first step is self-awareness. Start paying attention to your own patterns in your relationships. Like, what are your triggers? What are the things that make you kind of shut down or pull away? What are
Mhm.
those deep fears and insecurities you have? It's really about getting to know yourself on a deeper level.
It's almost like holding up a mirror to yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. It
Yeah.
can be a little daunting,
Yeah.
but it can also be very empowering.
Yeah.
Because once you have that awareness, you can start to communicate those needs and boundaries to your partner.
Right.
Remember, Intimacy, it requires vulnerability from both
Hmm.
sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone is, feeling really stuck or overwhelmed,
Mm.
professional help can be so valuable.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, therapists, they can provide a safe space to
absolutely.
really explore these issues and develop some healthy coping mechanisms.
I completely agree. Seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows you're really committed to yourself
Right.
and to your relationships.
We've explored a lot today, like different types of intimacy issues, the role of past trauma, attachment styles. We even talked about the importance of communication. But I think one question that keeps coming up for me is the role of societal expectations.
Right.
How much do those unspoken rules about relationships actually influence our ability to like really genuinely connect?
That is such a good question. And, I think it's something that we all grapple with.
Yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with all these messages about what a successful relationship should look like. And it makes it really hard to tune into our own needs and desires,
Right.
what actually works for us.
What
Yeah.
we actually want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a lot to think about. But, if you're listening to this right now
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you're struggling with these issues,
Right.
just remember you're not alone.
Yeah.
Intimacy is a journey, and it's okay to ask for help along the way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.